I was never really exposed to law enforcement. I had no family members that were on the job. I had no family friends or anything like that. I didn't have a natural interest in it. In fact, I spent pretty much most of my childhood wanting to be an aerospace engineer of all things, from probably about the time when I was 10 years old. And it was either that or be in the Air Force. My entire bedroom was decorated with every Air Force poster you can possibly imagine. And two of my uncles worked for Lockheed, and they would send me every Lockheed poster imaginable. And that's all I could think about my entire, especially teenage years. And in school, I was a bit of a nerd. I was very focused on my academics and played a little bit of sports, but it was definitely not the most important. And
what was it about aerospace engineer that?
So a big part of it was my fascination with aviation, and not necessarily flying, but the mechanical side of it, like just how things work, how these planes are able to do what they do, new technologies involving aviation and aerospace. And one of my uncles, he was an aerospace engineer for Lockheed for a very long time. And so, of course, the few times a year I saw him, all he tells me is the really cool stuff he's doing, right? All these really cool projects. He worked on the F-16, he worked on the F-35. And so I get this image in my mind of like, yes, that's it. That's awesome. That's what I want to do. And I kind of had this also thought of like, well, the Air Force is such a good route. Like, we were not people of money at all. And I'm thinking like, all right, how am I going to pay for college? Like, well, the military sounds great. Air Force is what I need to do. I had this thought in my mind for the longest time until I had a pretty bad accident when I was 14, broke every bone in my right leg, a couple of bones in multiple places. And it was pretty severe. Almost lost my leg and went through a ton of rehab, surgeries total over 4 years. I thought it was 10. I was saying something to my mom the other day and she's like, no, it was 13. It was 13. I'm like, I've been saying 10 for like 20 years. But no, 13 surgeries over 4 years, most of them kind of towards the beginning to fix everything. And once I was fully recovered and actually walking again, which took me about a year and a half to even walk again, maybe a year, the military was way out of the picture. That was not going to happen. So I very much focused on my education and just doing well in school and laser focused on an engineering path. And graduated high school 11th out of a class of, I think, about 650 graduating students. So we had a pretty big high school. But then college was a little bit of a struggle to figure out what to do because I couldn't afford to go out of state. There's only a couple of colleges in Texas that had aerospace engineering. Plus, I was still recovering from my final surgery, which I had after I graduated high school. So I couldn't move right away. It was a bit of a mess, but I ended up at UT Arlington. They have a great aerospace engineering program there. I did a year of classes, just some intro to engineering, and I'd always been very good at math. It just came naturally. Well, when math comes naturally to you, and it's always easy, and then suddenly you get to a level of calculus that is like an alien language, which is what happened to me. I was like, wait a minute, I don't like math as much as I thought I did. And I have a lot more to go if I'm going to continue in this career field. And so I kind of had this sudden realization at the age of, I probably would have been 20, about to turn 20 when all this happened. I'm like, all right, what am I going to do now? So I was a bit lost. I changed my degree program into aviation management, which fell in line with more like airport operations or working on the business side of like a Lockheed or a Bell helicopter or a Boeing, something like that. And that kept me in that aviation kind of field. And I really liked it, but something changed one day and there's really nothing special about it. Like I didn't meet some cop or have some like chance encounter or some big moment. I literally saw a job posting on monster.com for police officer at the Irving, Texas Police Department. And I was looking for a full-time job. At that time, I was only working part-time. And I saw it pop up in my monster.com emails. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's something caught me. And I was like, I better think about this. And I'm reading through the whole job listing. And all of a sudden, I like just delved into anything law enforcement recruiting that I could think of. So I applied for that job. I just turned 21. So I was eligible just by age and made it all the way to the final interview board, aced the test. I know I was in the top 5, and I can't remember how many hundreds of people. Back then, pretty much every police entry-level opening, especially around Dallas-Fort Worth, they had, I mean, we're talking 5, 6, 7, 800 applicants for 5 jobs. So I was pretty proud of myself, and I'm like, man, this is like, I'm going to ace this. Well, I ended up making it to the final interview board, got cut for lack of life experiences, and was exactly what they told me. And of course, I was devastated. I was pretty pissed off. Like, I'm sorry I was a good kid. I'm sorry I didn't get in trouble. Like, I've never been to the principal's office. Like, I've never done drugs, still haven't. I didn't smell marijuana. I didn't even smell marijuana until we did a controlled burn in my first police academy. So I was pretty aggravated, but I kept going. I applied for a couple more police departments around Dallas, had the same thing happen. So I kind of gave up on that for a little bit because I needed a job. And that led me into my next job, which I think you found kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Do you want me to get into that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So another monster.com email. I should write them a letter that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for monster.com. I'm looking for a full-time job. I'm only working part-time at Bell Helicopter. Loved it there. Amazing place. It was at their main plant in Hurst, Texas. But it was just part-time, and they had nothing for me full-time at all until I graduated. And so I see a job opening at a car dealership, at a Mini Cooper dealership in Arlington, Texas. I love cars, huge car guy. Like, you know what? I could work at a car dealership. Like, this would be great. So I apply, I get the job. I end up selling brand new Mini Coopers in 2004. This is a year after they first came out. Absolutely did a great job at it. Loved it. And the funniest thing that I like to tell people now, if they ask me like what prepared me for my career or whatever, I tell them I got a job selling cars. And at first, of course, that doesn't make sense. Like, how does selling cars have anything to do with law enforcement? I was fairly introverted my whole childhood and up until that point, selling cars. And that job forced me to learn how to talk to people. It forced me to learn how to read people, and for me to be personable and relate to them. And like, nobody wants to trust a car salesman, right? Like, I had to figure out, how do I break that stigma? And it changed the rest of my life, basically. Like, I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't sold cars for 2.5 years. It's crazy. So I did that. I put off applying for police departments. I finished my degree, which I took the very long route finishing my degree. But once I did, I was like, all right, I'm not going to focus on aviation. That job field was pretty bad around that time.
So what did you end up getting your degree in?
Aviation management.
Okay.
I ended up graduating from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
So you still got your degree in aeronautical engineering, but then you knew that at this point, you knew you wanted to go into law enforcement.
Yes.
So no rhyme or reason. Just kind of got into it.
Yeah. So it was about at one point, I did my first ride along. Oh, it was when I applied for Irving back when I was 21. And I was maybe just about a junior in college. And this officer I did my first ride along with, I was talking to him about it. He's like, do not change your career field or your degree field. Everybody's got a degree in criminal justice.
Right.
If you're already this far along in aviation management, he's like, stick with it. Like, we need a variety in this career field. We don't need everybody with criminal justice. And if you decide it's not for you, you've got something else you can focus on.
Yeah.
That's why I stuck with that degree, even though I never lost the vision of what I wanted to do.
Right.
And I never lost that hope. So yeah, after I graduated and I had my degree, I started applying for some police departments again around Dallas. And this would have been 2005 when the announcement came out. Again, we got a theme here. Email on monster.com for entry-level job opening with Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Okay. Did you know what they were?
I had no idea.
Okay.
So at that point, ICE had only existed for 2 years after the merger between Customs and Immigration and Naturalization Service. So no, I had zero clue what ICE was. I had to Google it. I had to look it up. I still barely understood what the job was. All I knew is it was federal law enforcement, and I could apply because I had my degree.